Welcome to the CG Pro podcast. This is episode 33. We have Onyi Udeh with us tonight, and I will do an intro to him in a second. If you enjoy the episode and you like what we have to say, then you can follow us in our Facebook group. If you want to find out more about CG Pro, the school, you can follow us at becomecgpro.com. So, yeah, our very special guest tonight. I'm very excited about tonight's episode. Onyi is an amazing individual. He has many talents. He's a founder of several enterprises. One which we'll talk a lot about tonight, I'm sure. It's a new endeavor, and it's in the middle of a launch. But yeah, Onyi's based in Los Angeles. Focuses on using technology to help creative people tell their stories. Essentially, he runs a largest animation community. I believe the animation biggest animation club in the world, with 25,000 members, and also Pipeline, which is what he's in the middle of launching at the moment, and we will talk a lot about that. Onyi's worked for some amazing big studios such as Disney and some other large companies that you may have heard of, Apple, Buzzfeed, things like that. Also run a production company, Kolanut, and many other things as well. But I will stop there and say, Onyi, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
This is fun. I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. So yeah, I just wanted to start off and ask you a little bit about you and where your journey began. Any early inspirations that kind of led you in this direction towards being interested in animation, film, helping people, etc.
Man, I was very fortunate, right, to be born in what maybe some would consider the first golden age of animation, which is like the 90s, right? I'm talking, Saturday morning cartoons, before school cartoons, after school cartoons. It was just Cartoon Central when I was growing up, and it was great. Just such a rich variety of storytelling, which just inspired me. I was truly in love with this medium of storytelling, and as I grew, it grew with me, which I was very fortunate for, right? Because as I grew into my teens, that's when the discovery of anime, was a thing. And, Cartoon Network had Adult Swim, no, excuse me, not Adult Swim, Toonami, right? And then you saw your anime kind of crossing overseas for the first time. So it was like at every stage of my life, there was animation with amazing storytelling that had everything from coming of age stories to, stories about character and the value of hard work and training and this and that. And it was just something that I just felt deeply connected to. And to this day, like, it's still something that I'm very much in love with, and I prefer as a medium to experience stories. So yeah, that was my love for animation. It stayed with me throughout, and which led me to eventually start my own boutique studio with my brother.
An animation studio.
Yeah. So
what was it particularly about animation as opposed to other formats like traditional film or other things? Something grabbed you particularly about animation?
Animation felt limitless. It felt like I was seeing things that I would see in my dreams on screen. There was really no limit to the kind of the craziness, because we've all had those like really whacked out dreams that was like, whoa, it's hard to describe. But I felt like animation, you could actually illustrate those crazy dreams in a very accurate way, no matter how crazy it was, via animation. And I loved how animation gave me that ability to express those things or visually see those things. Like the idea, this is kind of corny, but the idea of powering up, right? Like we've all seen like Dragon Ball Z and all this stuff. Pre like Dragon Ball Z and all this stuff, I wouldn't know how to really like visually articulate that, right? Like how do you demonstrate like someone like gaining energy and And we've all had those. Well, I was deep in sports, right? So you've had those feelings where it's like pure, like dopamine, like yeah, you feel like you're on fire almost. But at that time, live action, I didn't see anything that really represented that kind of feeling and that what that would look like. And here comes an animation, boom, perfectly described, perfectly encapsulates that whole experience. And I'm just like, yes, that's it. That's exactly how I was feeling in that moment. And I think a lot of people have these feelings or these dreams that they want to um, show the world, right? These stories that they want to tell the world. And I think animation is probably one of the easiest and most digestible ways to tell those stories. So that's why my love for animation is, and it really has grown over the years.
I really resonate with that as well. It's very similar for me. I think not being getting into visual effects specifically, and just the fact that you're not limited by the limitations of the real world. You
Yeah,
can express in ways that you can't with physical real things that you have to go find. Yeah, you
thousand
can.
percent.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. So how did it kind of start off for you? You talked about having a production company with your brother.
Yeah, so I believe I was working for Apple at that time, and I was just um, I was deep into technology. I was learning a lot, and one of my mentors was teaching me um, about how to identify X factors in markets, right? Kind of somewhat technical, but he was just like, you have to know where the puck is going, right?
Mm,
Don't go to where the puck is, go to where you think it's going, right? It's kind of high risk, high reward, but you can kind of use certain metrics to kind of figure it out. So he was like, and to do it with something you're passionate about. So for me, I was like, okay, um, what am I passionate about? And as I'm thinking about this, of course, I'm watching anime in the background, and I was like, "Oh, hey, this is great. This is like I'm passionate about animation, right?" So I started thinking, and I was like, "What hasn't truly been covered in animation?" And for me, at that time, this was back in 2011, maybe 2012. I realized the stories that I grew up on because I'm Nigerian. My parents are both Nigerian. But I was born in the States, and
mm,
my dad used to tell us oral folklore, right, from Africa, West Africa.
mm,
So I didn't get your traditional bedtime stories. I got it acted out in a very specific cultural way,
mm.
and I realized I had never seen that on screen. So for me,
Right.
it was like, oh, here's a great opportunity to kind of be first to tell this like batch of stories rooted in African folklore, history, and mysticism, right? So I called my brother up. Um, at the time, this is when WeChat was very early. I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, we'll do it. But if we do it, we got to do it our way. And I was like, sure, whatever that means, let's do it. So that's kind of how we just got into animation. We started writing, and then a team of two became a team of 3 or 5, and eventually grew to a team of about 25. And we developed,
Wow.
at this point, internally, we've developed over 60 IPs. Um, we've had
Wow.
some projects in development with different studios. We had something at Cartoon Network. Yeah, it's just yeah, it was a process, and now we're in the process of taking these stories and taking this production studio to another level by um, kind of taking what I learned from during my time at Disney and kind of creating this kind of super multi-studio African umbrella for animation. So I can't get too deep into that yet, but next, probably in 2023, we'll be announcing some really cool stuff.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, so
Yeah,
it is a beautiful continent with a lot of story and history and
very rich.
yeah, incredibly. Yeah, one of the most amazing places I've got to spend time. I've spent several months in a few countries in Africa, and
Yeah,
it really touched my heart. The spirit of the people there was unlike anywhere I've experienced, and stories
truly,
that need to get out.
Truly, yeah, and it's also the feeling you describe is something I'm very desperate to translate on screen,
Mm,
right? There's a feeling of instant community, right? And I've done my research, and I'm very fortunate to have a family around me, which is very heavily researched, and there's specific research that goes into why you have that feeling, right?
mm.
And what makes up this instant like feeling of being welcomed and being at home and being welcomed into culture and food and how this all plays out with each other. It's fascinating to me, and it's something that I cannot wait to really show through animation. So the feeling. I'm glad you said what you said, because it's an important feeling that I really want people to understand and get the opportunity to experience themselves. What first on screen, and then of course eventually when they're ready to come to the content themselves.
I look forward to it as well. And I genuinely, I remember it's been a minute since I've been over there, but I do remember that feeling extremely well. I was talking to a friend of mine, Michael Page, about it, who felt the same way. We both kind of connected around that idea. And I remember the feeling of when I went home too, after 3 months of being in, Central Africa and going back to London, and feeling like looking around at the faces and around me and thinking, wow, everyone here seems so miserable and like from where I've come from, and I wanted to go back straight away. It was
Yeah.
uh I've had a lot of good times in England, obviously, but yeah, there was something very missing when I got home, and I thought like I wanted it back, and I have wanted it back ever since.
um, we'll offline we'll go in depth about this, because it's it never gets old for me. I'm on the continent at least 2-3 times a year in Africa, more often in the West, but I have goals to hit all 54 and just really kind of be everywhere and touch the culture. But it's always a good time, always a good time, and it always sucks when I have to leave. But
Yeah.
the great thing about what I'm doing with Pipeline is it gives me an opportunity to see the creative community globally, right? To be able to actually
Mm.
go and touch and speak to creatives and storytellers in animation throughout the continent, and understanding how they tell stories and their approach and their pun intended pipeline for animation. And it's so fun, and the stories are so amazing, and you hear their inspirations, and sometimes if you're lucky they'll take you to what inspired them to write certain stories, and that's a story in and of itself. So it's for me, it's I'm having a great time doing what I'm doing right now.
It sounds like there maybe even be like, I don't know, documentaries or stuff like that around you
Yeah,
probably thought of this already.
yeah, if someone wants to volunteer to be my cameraman and follow me around, I'm all good for it. Yeah.
Anyone out there? And
Hey,
comment in the chat if you
comment
want
in the chat, let me know if you
if you
want
want to be
to
on
follow me
these.
around. I promise it'll be fun.
I could only yeah, it would be for sure. So there's a bunch of things that are coming up here and things I want to ask you about. But clearly you've been involved in telling stories in technology. You just talked about the fact that you were working at some prominent technology companies, so you obviously came up professionally through tech as well. How did you get into the tech route and then back into the filmmaking route?
Extremely serendipitous. It's, I mean, to know me is to know why this isn't such a weird kind of fall into technology. But when it was time to pick a college, got into UCLA, and I was like, okay, cool. But then I went on a college tour to the Bay Area, courtesy of a program at Berkeley, and instantly I fell in love with the Bay Area. It was such a weird feeling. It was like I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
Mm,
And even though I didn't get into Berkeley, I was like, I have to go out here. I don't know why, but something's telling me I need to be out here. So I decided to go to a state school, San Francisco State University. And this was right around the time of this kind of second tech boom. So Eventbrite was brand new. Uber was just starting out. A lot of these companies were just starting. And because Eventbrite was kind of new in the space, everybody was posting their events for free. So all these tech companies were posting their events for free on Eventbrite. I'm a broke college student, so what do I see? Free food, free invite. I'm there. So me being a broke college student, just trying to get some food or whatever, I find myself sitting in on some of the, at the time, most cutting edge tech discussions and how people were using tech to solve and innovate in various industries. Because before then I could fix a computer, but that's about it. I didn't have any real tech background. But I spent that year and a half going to almost every night. I was in the city at what is it? I was at the Facebooks, the Googles, the Foundries. I was all in these venues all around tech people, learning from them, and it was such a great experience. I came in as a bio major, ended up becoming a techie. Right, it shifted everything for me, and in a very weird way, I ended up working for Apple my sophomore year of college.
Right. Wow.
And yeah, and then I was like, I'm gonna stick to this. Like I'm gonna stick to this. And you know, I tell people I ended up going to Apple University because from there I learned so much. Just I learned so much, not even just on the technology side, on the marketing side, understanding why certain things were a certain way, why certain things were placed, certain colors were selected, what the customer experience is truly and what that journey is, the value of making sure there's an in-person experience when people have issues instead of putting them through a robot and automated system. Like, what is the value of, what is the purpose of technology, right? Which is a conversation that you very rarely hear technologists have.
No.
But at Apple,
normally they'd say to sell technology.
You know,
products.
like, oh, it's technology. You know, you use it for this. But I will say, at Apple, that was ingrained in you. They're like, this is purely for the purpose of helping people communicate. You are helping people communicate. That is what that's what this is for. So if something is wrong, you communicate with the person, right? You got to take it back to that, you know, those foundational rules, right? You're here to help people communicate. So all of that really helped shape my eventual pivot into media and entertainment technology, right? So I did some cybersecurity. Then I came back to LA, worked at Buzzfeed, started learning about kind of the production tech side of things. And then in a very weird way again, I went on vacation. I believe I went to Nigeria and then Ghana, and I came back. And as my flight's landing, and I turn on my my service, there's a voicemail, and it's Disney. And it's like, hey, we kind of love to have lunch. Let's talk. They had seen my background in cybersecurity. They were like, you know, we'd love to talk more. I ended up going to lunch with them. The lunch was maybe about 40 minutes. It was a great lunch, great conversation. On the walk from the restaurant to my car, it was about a 3-minute walk. I get a text offering me the job, which I didn't even realize. Like was this the job interview? I just thought it was a conversation. And yeah,
I guess it was.
Yeah, I guess it was, right? And it was just like, okay, blink, here I am. I'm at Disney. And I think at the same time I was working on a show with Cartoon Network with my brother. Right. This is before the I think this was the first of the major 3 big shifts at Cartoon Network, Warner Brothers, and HBO Max. This is right as we're doing this big shift. Right before Sam Register comes on, if you know who he is, right before he takes over. So I'm working Disney. I still have my IP on the side, and my brother's kind of running that shop. But while at Disney, I'm given the task to essentially work with all of the studios under Disney's umbrella and maintain their technology that they're building for productions, as well as manage, what technology built on the outside could come into Disney's environment. So I get to see all of these amazing applications, like like a full list of probably was maybe well close to well over a thousand applications used to build some of the best stuff that we've seen. Right. Trying to remember what I can and can't say, but even things used to work on the soon to be released Avatar. Right. Like this is some cutting edge stuff. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. And I start thinking back to my experience with my studio and how much I struggled with trying to find talent and how much I struggled with kind of just learning the process and how it was a 10-year process for me to learn the ins and out of animation. I was like, oh, if I could just shorten this experience and, use some technology to just make it faster, I could get a lot more content out there. So then it hit me. What are you talking about? What are you complaining about? You're at the apex of entertainment. You're at Walt Disney Studios. You have access to the list. Go and find what they're using. I'm like, oh, this is great. We're going to do it. I go into the list and there's nothing there. And I was like, wait a minute. There's nothing here to help me quickly staff for projects. So how are they doing this? So I started doing a little bit more digging, start asking more questions. Come to find out, Disney itself had a backlog of animation projects that were in backlog purely because didn't have enough access to the talent to quickly staff it. So it was kind of like a queue. I was like, huh. So the pandemic
sounds
hits.
like an idea was born.
Definitely. Definitely. At that moment, it was like, huh. If I had this problem as a small boutique studio and Disney had this problem, like being the apex of technology, well, then there's a talent pipeline issue. Huh. Okay. So then I was like, all right, this is great. I'm going to save up some cash and I'm going to maybe take a leave of absence and see if I can make this thing work. And right as I'm getting ready to put this plan into action, the pandemic hits.
Right.
My department with maybe 15 others get furloughed.
Mm-hmm.
And the little nest egg I put on the side to develop this goes to literally staying alive.
Yeah.
And I'm crushed because I'm just like, oh, I had plans for this, and really, really sucked. But just goes to show you everything happens for a reason. A buddy that I met in the Bay Area said, hey, there's this really cool app that's coming out right now, invite only. I'm going to give you an early invite. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And, it happens to be Clubhouse. This is early, right? And I'm just like, whoa, okay. Sure, I'll hop on there. And, at the time, Clubhouse was VCs, heads of music labels, heads of directors. It was kind of the who's who earlier on. I think there were less than, at that time, maybe less than 10,000 members, right? Kind of fairly small. And everyone in here is talking about their things and speaking from a position of being an expert, but nobody was talking about animation. So I'd be like the lone voice, like championing animation in these rooms and talking about it. Like, you guys don't understand. This is great. Here's where this came from. Here's this reference. And I'm really pushing it. And at the time, this is before the data came to support it, I said, animation is not fragile. And in fact, I believe it's probably going to be animation that's going to keep these studios afloat during this COVID time. Directors are like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. The studios are closing down. But I'm like, okay, just watch. A couple months go by. I invite the first friend I met in Hollywood, Mia Kai Simone Moody, who works for Family Guy. I invite her onto Clubhouse with my invites, and sure enough, the good folks at Clubhouse give us access to create the first animation club on their platform. And at that moment, anybody who was interested in animation would tune into our rooms. We were doing maybe 2-3 rooms a day, different times around the world: India, Singapore, Japan. We have some people from Syria, Argentina. You could just it was so amazing to kind of start plotting the maps and seeing how many people were in animation around the world, and giving them a platform to speak about their love for animation, how they're approaching it, and what they were struggling with. So from there, I start kind of planting seeds about pipeline and using the community to kind of A/B test certain things. I say, hey guys, this is what I'm working on. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it as a community. And the community backed me. They just kept giving me feedback, and I was able to just use the community every 2 to 3 weeks and invite a couple of them to a Zoom session and say, hey, this is what this looks like. We're mapping this out. How does this feel? And they would give us honest feedback. They would say, that doesn't work. I don't feel comfortable with that. I would love if this worked. I would love if this worked. I was like, well, can you explain why? And they're giving us this information. I'm writing it down. I'm putting it into, we're just moving it around. And eventually we come with a solid product that everyone who we just showed it to in the community they were excited. They were like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for. So we met at the Microsoft Production Summit. This is right as we're starting our alpha. So now was the time to actually test and see if the market would respond to a animation specific talent marketplace. Just wanted to see what would happen. In about 3 months, we got over $1 million in project request.
Wow.
No online marketing.
That's not bad with no marketing. Yeah.
Nope. Purely off of the community saying, hey, talk to Onyi. And it was just like, whew, we have something here.
Yeah.
And for us, the vision grew because I'm all about ecosystem and I'm all about community. And as you can tell, right, I'm really big on community. So for us, we saw this as a brilliant opportunity to build this animation ecosystem, like truly democratizing the process of animation. So anybody, no matter your background, your skill set, could come on this platform and get a story told in animation. So we said we'd start with the marketplace to just quickly get everybody on the platform, list their skills, their portfolio, their services, and then we start adding more and more value. Skills training, digitally, virtually, so anyone in the world can access it, right? Production management systems, we're going to keep baking it into the platform so you can truly manage the production from beginning to end, right? And we'll even create templates to help you manage that, right? Ways to finance. Right now we're working on really cool ways to get projects financed.
Oh, cool.
Right? And then down the road, well, not too far down the road, but distribution, right? We want to actually help you and point you to the places where you can actually get your projects distributed. So yeah, for us, this is just, my team and I, we just have so much fun in what we're building. It's like, this is the greatest job I've ever had in my life, truly, because every day I'm working with artists, I'm working with studios, I'm working with creatives, I'm seeing what they're working on, and I'm helping them tell stories through animation, which is, for me, is ideal.
Wow, what a cool story, all the way beginning to end there. And so there's a lot to unpack there. And I think one question I want to ask you before we talk more about pipeline is, what's through this journey that you've been on, you've made you've been in some quite different environments, but they've all added up to where you are now.
Yeah.
What have you felt like has been the kind of the guide for you to make the decisions that you've made at certain pivotal moments?
The guide is that I'm also creative. I'm not making these decisions purely from a tech or purely from a profit standpoint. I know what it's like to not have a lot of money, but to have a story that keeps you up at night that you just want to tell,
Mm,
right? I know. I've been there, right? So everything we're doing in a way that is truly manageable and makes it possible for storytellers to tell stories at any level, at any level. Even, you know, we're in a bear market right now, of course, and the wave of Web3 has kind of gone down just a little bit, but there's some real utility. There's some real utility in some things that are Web3, and even with that, we're leveraging things of that nature to make it easier for people to tell stories and make it easier for people to collaborate and make it easier for groups of people who share nothing but passion of storytelling to come together, tell a story, and to all equally get a share in whatever the profits are from that story. Right? These
right.
these are all things that are guiding me and the team as we're making decisions to really uh, take advantage of this great time that we're in. I think this is the second uh, era. This is the second golden era of animation that we're in right now, personally. And I feel like you know you see this convergence happening from different industries. Uh, Live action, you're seeing a lot of changes in there that require animation talent. Right? The gaming industry is expanding. It needs a lot more animation talent. Metaverse, AR, VR, NFT, even education, finance. Everybody is kind of collectively looking for this talent, and to kind of copy it, take a phrase from somebody who I was just talking to a couple of days ago. Uh, we're essentially building the picks and the shovels that everyone's going to use to unsource this wealth of gold that is the animation industry, right? We're helping you unlock that talent, helping you unlock those stories, and eventually get to what you're looking for. So it feels good.
Now it's an exciting time for sure, and your enthusiasm is infectious, and I'd love to know where are you today? I know that you're going through a launch, but you
Yeah,
described a previous kind of soft launch. Now you're in
yeah.
a more
We are in a very strategic soft launch. So
mhm,
I wanted to onboard the community first. So our wait list is over 30,000 at this point, and it's very easy to tip something like this over if you're not careful. So we're spending the first 2.5 weeks onboarding the talent. So right now, if you're to go to www.joinpipeline.com, right, you would see two prompts, right? Get hired or hire talent. If you're trying to hire talent, it'll just push you through like a Google form, which we're using for our alpha to take in projects. And we would basically white glove that process for you and just match you with talent so you can get your production up and running. But if you're, excuse me, also, if you're on the other side of that and you want to get hired as talent, you can actually go on our platform and start your portfolio. So you can list your portfolio, upload your reel, upload proof of the type of work that you do, set prices for your services, and then you'll become an actual storefront on our platform. So now when we officially open the platform, your studio or your individual creator storefront will be listed on the marketplace so people can hire you for your specific skills. So we get
yeah,
really granular too. So we'll ask you what animation type, what animation style, what age demographic do you like to create for? Because our thing is, I've experienced in my 10 years of working with my virtual studio, people do great work when you let them work on what they really like to work on, right? Um, so for us, it's like let's help people work on what they like to work on. So yeah,
So
it's
you
great.
have you have studios on there as well as
Yes,
individuals.
individual talent, boutique studios, and vendor studios, right? Um,
Right.
so for those kind of quick one-off projects, gig work that you don't need like a lot of talent for, a lot of man hours for, you could just hire a gig worker, right? If you're a studio looking to fill a position, a full-time position, you can kind of go through our repository of talent and pick a few to hire on full-time, and we can help you through that process. And then if you have a project like a commercial, right, or social media campaign, or animated GIF that you want to kind of roll into your Spotify or something like that, we feel like maybe those are things that boutique studios with 10 people or less can handle, right? It's not too much for that team. But then some people have bigger projects. They have animated series that they want to complete. They have animated features. They have games. And at that point, we think it's best to work with a vendor studio that has, upwards of 15 employees at their disposal that can really help you meet your goal, especially if it's on like a time crunch. So we're just really trying to help categorize it. But of course, it's new. We're learning. The more that people interact with us, the more we're going to be able to kind of fine tune the services for the community. So this is it as it is now, but it's definitely going to have more improvements.
Great. So you said you have a waiting list of 30,000.
Yeah.
That will take some processing. Do you have any idea of like if somebody approached you today when they might hope to be in the system?
Yeah. So the goal is by the end of this year to get messages to everybody to get on platform who's on the wait list. Right.
Right.
That's the goal. We want to get everyone on there, but we're slowly kind of unlocking the features every 2 weeks. We're pushing new features and things of that nature to build the experience out for people. Most likely, I think when we get the number is 1,000. Once we finish onboarding 1,000 really good portfolios, just to make sure every field is kind of accounted for, that's when we'll kind of flip the lights on and let kind of everybody kind of go in there. But then we'll still be onboarding, and making it easier for people to get on platform.
Got it. Makes sense. But somebody could go there today if they were looking to hire some talent, they could find a person today.
So the marketplace won't be available to them yet, but they can go
Okay.
and fill out the form to get something, staffed or get talent on their project. So they would get the in-person team actually working on their behalf, which is a service that we're actually going to keep for the enterprise clients. The enterprise clients will get that type of service where vetted, handheld, still have a dedicated pipeline talent coordinator with them the whole step of the way. Whereas the general marketplace will have kind of a self-service marketplace that they can access. And I believe that will fully be accessible towards the end of November.
Okay. So thinking about this and being trying to bring it back to the perspective of a young aspiring animator who wants to get into the industry, what advice would you give somebody today looking to get into animation?
Man,
I know there's a lot of different types of animation,
so many different
so it's
things,
a
but the
broad
biggest thing I
question.
would say is
Yeah.
join a community, right? Or specifically an ARG. An ARG I refer to as an animation resource group. There's so many amazing animation resource groups out there that can help you navigate the industry. One, of course, the Animation Club. We're on Clubhouse. We're also on Twitter Spaces. We meet every week. Great conversations, great networking, things of that nature. But then there are also some really, really amazing ones like Latinx and Animation. Good friends of ours, amazing stuff. They truly represent the Latinx community in the best way possible. They do amazing, amazing work. Another one's Black and Animated, great work. Another one, Rise Up in Animation. They're amazing, amazing as well. Women in Animation, internationally known. So there's just so many. Asians in animation, just kind of the list goes on and on and on, right? And I believe they're all under the umbrella of the AAC, the Animation Advocacy Coalition, something of that nature. But quite a few. Like, you could take your pick. And the reason why I say start with community, it's because animation is one of the, it's just one of these like almost family-based, creative, collaborative expressions. Like, you need to build community. You need to build a network because you can't do it by yourself. Or rather, it's very tough to do it by yourself. So it's important to build those communities and those friendships and those networks, because typically once you have a great relationship and a friendship and you work with somebody, when they get an opportunity or a new project is coming up, TV, film, or whatever, what recruiters typically ask, well, who would you like to work with? Like, who would you like to bring along? If you have that community, it's like, oh yeah, bring this person along, or take this person. They're great. I think it was Jorge Gutierrez was talking. He did Mayan 3. He was talking about how he met his now like partner producer, right? And I think they started out like his part. I think when his producer was like a PA or something like that, and he was like, I'm probably gonna misquote, either a character designer or like a revisionist. Like, they met when they were like kind of bottom tier of below the line, but because they had that relationship and they kept growing, they kept building, now director, producer, tag team duo. That's how it happens. You have to build that community. And I think in today's day and age, as we're seeing the appetite for content growing, it's like it's a variety. I think Netflix really opened up kind of the Pandora's box of content consumption. It's YouTube plus Netflix, right? The kind of have it your way mentality, or the have it your way approach to content, right? Traditional linear was, if my show's on, I sit down. If it's not, meh. But now it's like, I can watch what I like 24/7 without a break. So of course I'm consuming a lot more hours because I can have it my way. So now you're seeing this kind of global appetite grow, right? The animation industry exploded from the time COVID started to now. I quote the numbers all the time, and people are always shocked. $372 billion, 2021, double the size of the gaming industry. It's exploding. It's because people have this great appetite, and now studios, distributors are starting to understand that, hey, we now have to have a strategy for each local market. So you're seeing a lot of localization starting to take place. You're seeing Amazon in Nigeria, or Netflix in Argentina or Japan. You're seeing everyone kind of starting to set up shop in different markets. So I tell my fellow creators and artists, you should be expanding your network as well. You should be talking to artists in Argentina. You should be talking to artists in Ghana or South Africa or Nigeria, Singapore, Philippines, India. You know what I mean? Like, you need to expand your network, because it's going to help when people now want to do internationally built projects, right? The more I'm in the industry, I'm learning more about things like co-pros, right? Where governments will give you certain tax write-offs if you have 30% of the crew from Canada or Spain or this. This is a great way to get some of the funding for your project, but then also work with a distributed team, which you already have to do because animation is kind of too expensive to do entirely in the US, right? So these are ways that people can start working together to get more content out there and help grow other local creative communities. So I think, like I said, it's just the perfect time. And again, it's also a great time to expand education. Hence,
I agree with you. Yes.
CG Pro.
Yeah. I'm definitely biased on that one, running a school. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, and it's a responsibility of of education. It's also the responsibility of the individual, as you said, to reach out and find the sources of education. We one thing I love that you're mentioning as well is giving people access to communities where they felt traditionally underserved. We're a huge proponent of. We have a diversity program. We care a lot about trying to increase the the access to skills, to being able to get skills. Some of our training is not as affordable to everybody, but we care about that, and we're trying to increase that. That's one way to do it. Well, I'm really interested to hear your take on how we can encourage more people from backgrounds where they've maybe felt like this is not something that's possible for them.
Um, I think, I think what's the old saying, like if you build it, they'll come.
Mm,
I believe in that, but I think that also the writings on the wall. If you travel enough, there are people, and I'm gonna give another shout out to Latinx Animation, one of their co-founders, Magdiela. Um, she traveled, I think, to Guatemala to work with a production company. It was her and one of the heads of Buck Animation. His name's escaping me at this time. They basically spent like 3 or 4 weeks teaching like animation pipelines for television to the studio so that they could take on work from the States
right.
and produce. And the impact that had, I mean, was incredible. Like my eyes are getting kind of weepy. Like think about it, because it's like you are empowering this local community to work, and to make art, and then eventually tell their own stories. Like you're truly teaching them. And the more I travel, the more I see this hunger just for the information it means. People want to access this training. I was speaking to the head of this studio in Nigeria. His name is Ferdinand, and the studio was called Magic Carpet. And he's literally building a sister company called Magic Labs just to train talent throughout Nigeria. And I was
Amazing.
just like, this is phenomenal. And he was like, there's the more I travel, the more I see people want to get into animation and storytelling, and they love it, and it's life changing for them, right? And because the cost of living is a lot different, right? So even like some would call like a basic job in the States would provide handsomely for someone on that side, especially if it's outsourced work, right? And for them, it's like they just want the opportunity. They're like, just teach us the how do you guys structure scripts? What's the best way to manage this Gantt chart so we can deliver on time? How do what do you look for when you do revisions? Just hungry for the information. And I'm like, this is the knowledge that we take for granted because we just like, oh, we're in the industry, we know. But if we develop training courses, right? If we develop criteria that's at the Hollywood standard, what CG Pro does at the Hollywood standard, people will line up all around the block and to keep going just to learn, right? And I think we need to start looking at it kind of like people started looking at software development in like the kind of early 2009, 2010, 2011, when you just saw this massive force of people who just wanted to start learning technology. They were like, hey, we just want to kind of get into tech. We want to learn coding. Teach me the basics. And the network effect of that training being online, I don't know how many new startups we have, how many new problems that we have solutions to. Tenfold, it just kept growing to the point where now you have it's not unusual to hear about a startup, or they're everywhere now, and it's ingrained into kind of how almost every industry is now getting their work out there. They're using technology to do it. So I see that we have a very similar opportunity here. Animation is palatable. It's easy to digest. It puts people at ease. It's also limitless and kind of it's how storytelling. It's very visual. We have a great opportunity to make the access to learning animation more available to people. And I think the result, the network effect is going to be we're going to see more animation in different industries. We're going to see more content out there. We're going to see more miniature guilds of content creators putting out their own stuff. I just see a bigger vision of a democratized approach to content creation.
Yeah,
if we can get
no,
this right.
I totally agree. Just coming back from Unreal Fest, where it was a pie chart showing how all of the attendees proportionally where they were from, and traditionally that was 100% games. At this event, it was actually slightly more from all the other industries.
Yeah.
And it was very, very clear that this is now affecting pretty much everything.
I'm glad you mentioned Unreal. Let's touch on Unreal for a second. What were people using Unreal for in the beginning?
Making a game, and then making some other games. Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah.
How is Unreal being used today?
Just about everything that you could possibly imagine. Yeah.
You and I were at the Microsoft Production Summit.
Yeah.
Right? Did we not watch a live action kind of scenario being shot? And
yes. I was actually helping run it in the background.
There it is. You were helping run it.
But I did watch it from a slightly more nerve-wracking position. Yes.
Right, but it was sensational to watch. And we saw this LED green screen, right? And we saw what directors going, let's move the light over here. Let's move that tree over here. What? On just in real time, we're gonna move this here. How does that shot look? Oh, it looks better. Okay, maybe even move this rock here.
Instantly,
Instantly. Just the application was it was mind-blowing. And I'm just like,
and some of the people, speaking of global, some of the artists was one in Argentina, there was one in Japan, there was one on the East Coast, the US. Globally, they were actually connecting into Unreal that was driving the wall, and there was somebody in Argentina moving a tree that then resulted in a change on a movie set instantly.
I'm gonna pause again to just kind of set the scene for people. We're in a studio in Los Angeles. We're on a set. The back of the set is a LED green screen. On the LED green screen is the background created in Unreal, correct?
Yep, that's right.
There's also kind of like a Zoom setup going. You got I think the director, producer, you have, oh, thank you. Jackie directed it, right?
Jackie was the director.
Jackie was director, which is great. Jackie was the director. Where was Jackie at the time?
She was in at least a different room in the same building.
Okay.
Yeah, so, she was in the
And then we had someone who was managing the Unreal from Argentina, right?
Yep, somebody in Argentina, somebody in Japan, somebody on the East Coast of the US, multiple people globally.
And then someone was live editing.
Yep,
all
in the cloud.
In the cloud.
It was all of those virtual machines were virtual. They were actually running in Azure, in the cloud. So the machines weren't even in the same room as the people working on them that were then connecting into another remote machine that was on the stage. So it was,
and all of this was happening in real time.
Yep.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm too excited about this, but for me, it's like, how can you not be like over the moon about how far we've come in our ability to tell stories?
Yeah.
And globally, instantaneously. So I see things like this, and I go, we could take it further. We could take it so much further. Like how quickly were you able to find that person in Argentina?
Well, he was one of the instructors in our school, so very quickly.
Well, he's an instructor.
Yeah.
Let's say you didn't have access to any of them,
if that wasn't the case, it's problematic. Yeah, difficult to find talent. and that's something which we're obviously trying to help as a school make more talent. And you are creating
Talent
a
available.
hub. Yeah,
Yeah, because I see a vision of entertainment where I type in, similar to like these prompts, I type in what I'm looking for and it spits out who's available to work now.
yeah,
And I go, all right. And similar to those who like fantasy football, I stack my fantasy football team for this production. I need this person here. I need this person here. Okay, I see it clearly. Spin up the virtual production. Let's go. Right, and I can even filter. Show me people who've gone through CG Pro training. Okay, great, because I know they have great people that come out of that space. All right, boom, 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 boom. Let's start. That's what I'm excited about. For
me
me,
too.
that's next frontier. That's how we just start shipping out more content. That's how we start actually working more with talent globally, right? That's where we get more diverse stories. And I just think that's where we start to kind of feel that global community effect more, because it'll start permeating through these stories that we're consuming. So this is, I get giddy about this. I get excited about this because this is, I'm passionate about it. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's coming across strong, and I'm with you. I feel exactly the same way. It's not just that it's made a a tool a bit better. It's actually made the whole process more collaborative, which is one of the
100%.
things I love about it so much. That you can act, this is actually happening. People are now, where visual effects was kind of people sitting on their own with headphones on, not interacting that much. This is now starting to change it to be
Yeah.
more collaborative in real time, people actually working together more, which is great.
And I think VFX artists love it. They want to be, they kind of
Yeah,
want to be in the mix. They want to feel like they're on set because they're a huge
yeah,
part of the movie making process.
yeah,
Let me zoom into set. I would love to. That'd be
totally. Yeah, I
great.
mean, it used to be you'd only go on set if you're a VFX supervisor. It was like one
Yeah,
person per show who got that privilege pretty much, and yeah, it would
that
take a
was a big
while to get
privilege.
there. Yeah,
And there was a whole bunch of security around them coming on and what they could bring. And oh, it's a
yeah,
lot. You know, I think there was a
yeah. It's an
question
exciting time.
from the chat regarding the animation club and pipeline.
Yes, yeah, I think somebody was asking whether they were the same thing, or if animation clubs still exist, how do they relate, that kind
So
of thing. Yeah.
animation clubs still exist. Um, One thing we're doing now is we're going to use animation club because they've been helping us out through this entire process, kind of like the guinea pig, so to speak, to also pilot out the community on pipeline. So we're building tools to actually make it easier to share resources, collaborate with each other. So it's going to be the evolution of the animation club. The animation club will exist on the pipeline chat. So we're just building the tools to make it easier for people to be in community with each other.
Fantastic. And is there any way that people can join Animation Club currently as it exists currently?
Yes, if you go to joinpipeline.com and hit the community tab, it'll take you right to the links to the Twitter community or the Clubhouse community. And we meet once a week, so you'll hear me alongside my amazing co-founder there.
Perfect. And then there's also the website for Pipeline
Yep,
to
all in
get
one.
that's perfect. Um, one other question, which I always believe in, passion driving where you go. There is also sometimes where you can kind of use moments in time to leverage increased opportunity, and I think at the moment we're seeing some increased opportunities in certain areas, and it's like a lack of supply and increased level of demand. Do you see areas here where there's uh, that kind of a thing going on, where there's basically more demand than there is supply? Sometimes that can help people jump into an industry and get
Yeah,
stuck.
there's a lot more demand. People truly have no idea right now. I get requests that I'm just like filtering through the 30,000 on the wait list, trying to see like, okay, who can I put here? Like, there's demand for people in Blender, right?
Mm,
People are building metaverses using Blender, right? Building assets. They just there's a huge need for people who have those skills, right? For texture, right? Sculptors, right? Riggers. Like you're seeing it like across the board. Just the need for people who possess this talent is growing. And that's because you just see this true convergence towards animation happening across industries, right? Even as something that you wouldn't expect to see animation in. Finance, perfect example. If you go to Binance, they have courses, different finance courses on crypto and this and that. I believe all of their courses are in animation.
Mm.
And it's like, it sounds so wild and out there, but there it is. Okay, let's take now live production, right? Generally, people don't think animation is involved in live production, but as you can see, yes, it is. You have more people leveraging LED green screens. They don't have to travel to 15 different locations for their films, right? So they need people who know how to use Unreal, right?
Yeah.
These are real things. These are real examples that are happening today. You're seeing like new uh, industries kind of growing, like edutainment. You're
Yeah.
familiar with that, yes?
Yeah.
So your Duolingos, like if you pay attention, didn't they just pick up like one of Disney's old heads of something? So I know they're gonna make a play
Oh,
to do
cool.
some really cool stuff, right? Kevin Mayer, I think they bought the company that he left TikTok for, bought the rights to Coco Melon, right?
Right. That's something I know a lot about.
Yeah, right.
I watch a lot of Cocomelon.
Coco
Yeah.
Melon, and then you have your Blueies, and it's just, man, it is the it feels like for those in animation, sometimes it feels like, yo, you're hearing a lot of layoffs happening, things of that nature. And it kind of feels daunting, like, oh, it's not a great time to be in animation. We're kind of in a recession. People are just trying to Companies are kind of just trying to make sure their bottom lines are good and their shareholders are happy. But by no means is animation taking a dip. It's the opposite. It's growing exponentially. You're
It was born in a massive recession.
It was
Uh,
born. There it is.
yeah.
Animation was born in a recession. Come on.
Depression even. Yeah.
Yeah,
So those times where industries are born and huge companies that you sort of take for granted today began in a time when everybody was shrinking and being careful, but those daring ones were out there on the edge creating something new.
truly. And you understand this because you travel a lot, right? And
Mm.
I like to really encourage people who are maybe stateside, who sometimes get tricked into believing the US is the world. I promise you it's not. There's more out there. Um,
There are other places. It's
there
true.
are I
Yeah.
promise you there are other
You
places.
heard it here first.
Surprise. Take a flight. It's there. Uh, they're growing their own. Other local economies are growing their own streaming services, and they're trying to like fill up their catalog with animation, right? Whether you're talking about the likes of Wild Brain in Canada, or you're talking about Globo in Brazil, right? Or you're talking about was it SPA Studios in Spain. Everyone's trying to grow DSTV, everyone's really trying to grow their own local IP because they see how anti-fragile it is. It is
Mm.
the pandemic sent a signal to the entertainment industry. Hey, we better have some animation that can survive if we end up being shut down again, because it
That's
hurt a
right.
lot of companies' bottom line. So it's like, oh, animation kept going. We should probably invest in that. So I'm telling you, look outside. There's great opportunities globally. Now's the time. We are truly experiencing an animation golden era, and I think now's the time to get on it.
And
But in
you
order to
also
get on that,
mentioned
you need courses.
absolutely, yeah. And we can help with that, just uh, as a shameless plug. The Another thing you mentioned just before we wrap was Blender and Unreal. These are things which are free,
Toon
and
Boom, yeah,
yeah. So you seeing a shift towards these kinds of tools, which have been in the background a little bit more?
yeah. Um, I think we're gonna have to start being, and I don't like saying this to, because I know how difficult it is to build something. You want to be able to keep the lights on, keep it profitable. When we talk about access, you have to think about different monetization strategies, so you don't have to like price gouge or squeeze every last drop out of somebody on a single subscription, right? You look at what the likes of Figma was able to do for the design world, making it affordable and accessible to millions. And so much so that it dwarfed what Adobe had going, and Adobe was running it for longer.
Mm.
And I truly believe it was because it was made price-wise accessible. There's value in making technology accessible. There's value in making training accessible. It becomes now the go-to. And then if it's accessible, you start adding more value at just slightly higher tiers of pricing. And because they trust you, they'll buy into it. So I personally, I see the likes of your Blenders, your Unreals as, it's a signal to the industry that, hey, these companies are going to sweep up and take a lot of these up and coming hungry people who want to get into animation because they're focused on accessibility and
Yeah.
and making that value available to people at any level. And from there, I think it's just going to balloon and grow, and then you'll start to see, more ways that they can monetize and recoup some of the funds. But accessibility is the game. Now's the era of, I would say now is the era of democratization and a mentality of abundance. The idea of scarcity and keeping things to oneself, I think that's going to die very soon. And people will start seeing the true value in having an abundance mentality. Give, give as much as you can, be of service. There's so much value in having that approach. And for those who are more on the capitalistic side, there's there's financial value in that as well. I promise. You just have to be a little bit more creative, but there's value in just giving people that you get those services that you can offer to them. And once you do that, people are a lot more loyal than you think, and they will come back when you have something that's maybe at a higher price point, but they'll want to support you the same way you supported them, by opening doors to them. So now's the time. Open doors, come into animation. It's the golden era. Get your training, learn your Unreal engines from the best. Shameless plug, CG Pro is doing some great work, folks. If you haven't seen what they're doing, get in. But yeah, this is the time.
Thank you.
It's an exciting time.
I absolutely agree, and yeah, it's such a pleasure having you on tonight, and to be able to share this excitement. It's absolutely where we come from as well, and yeah, it's a very exciting time to be been in the animation and visual effects industry for 15 years. This is the most exciting time that I've seen it, for sure. I share that with you. Is there anything else that you would like to share? We've shared your links to Pipeline, which you're in the middle of launching. Anything else that you want to share with the community?
Let's get our sponsors paid.
Get your links out.
Links out. So www.joinpipeline.com. Right now, you can see our landing page. You can sign up if you're an animation talent. We'd love to have you. We want to fill this with as many people as possible. More features will come out every 2 weeks. We will be making it comparable so that you can share resources. We actually want to get you paid for your services, animation, and so much and so forth. More things will be coming. Later next year, we will be unveiling some skills training. Hint, hint. Just keep your eyes on that. But yeah, our goal is to really focus on these 4 pillars, which is community, collaboration, financing, and distribution. Truly helping to democratize the process of creating animation and helping you tell your stories through animation. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more of you guys join the platform.
Well, to everybody out there, I hope you're already typing that website address into a browser somewhere and go join it. Go check out, become part of the revolution. Onyi, such a pleasure having you on tonight. I really appreciate your time. I love spending time with you. I look forward to more of it. And I wish you all the very best with the launch. And obviously, is there anything we can do to help? You let me know.
Will
But
do. Appreciate that. Thanks for
of
the
course,
invite. This was great.
of course, total pleasure. And yeah, also thank you, big thanks to our audience tonight. No, you guys have been participating, and it's been a real pleasure being here with you all as well. If you enjoyed tonight, we have another episode coming up in 2 weeks. We're speaking of animation. Haz Dalal will be joining us in 2 weeks. He runs Hazimation. They are pioneering in the world of animation, creating games and film with the same assets at the same time. So total cross media is super exciting stuff. Look forward to that one as well.
I'll definitely be back for that.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Well, yeah, total pleasure. And I hope you all enjoyed tonight. If you want to find out more about us, we're becomecgpro.com, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.